Hi friends, this is Ramsudheer. The focus of the video is we are going to learn some keywords related to economy which will help us solve questions in UPSC exams, both prelims as well as strengthen our concept with respect to answer writing as well. Initially, we'll be focusing on 100 keywords. Each video will cover approximately 10 keywords and we'll try to come up with some questions related to keywords in our subsequent videos. What is monetary policy? Monetary policy deals with money supply in the economy. How much money should move in the economy is regulated by an institution called as RBI in India. Monetary policy is basically focusing right now on aspect called as inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is nothing but increase in prices. Current monetary policy is focusing on handling inflation, and right now India's monetary policy is completely focused upon handling inflation. Inflation is nothing but increase in prices. Is inflation always bad for the economy? Inflation is never always bad for the economy. We should understand that some amount of inflation is always necessary for the businessman to do business. Then what is deflation? Deflation is nothing but fall of prices or fall in prices. Deflationary cycles are generally more dangerous than inflation. Then what is disinflation? Disinflation is nothing but fall in inflation. Let's take an example where suppose in 2014 the price of a product is 100 rupees and in 2015 the product price has become 120. There is a growth of 20 percentage when we see here. But similarly in 2015, in 2016 let's say, it has grown by 121.2. Then what is the percentage increase? It has grown by 1%. Though there is increase in price from 2015 to 16, the increase in price when compared is considerably less than the increase in price in the previous year. This is nothing but disinflation or fall in inflation. Though there is increase in price, when we make a comparison, that increase in price is comparatively less than the increase in price in the previous year. That is called as disinflation. What is liquidity? Liquidity as a concept is generally used in this chapter called as monetary policy. L- we call those assets, we term some assets as highly liquid, which are going to be easily converted into cash. So liquid or liquidity indicates nothing but easy conversion into cash. Gold is more liquid in comparison to building. Savings account are more liquid in comparison to fixed deposits. Easily something can be converted into cash. That is what we call it as liquid or liquidity. Something that can be easily converted into cash. This term will be explained in detail later when we are solving some questions in the subsequent videos. Then what is demand pull inflation? Demand pull inflation is an inflation or increase in price due to a phenomenon where too much of money is chasing too few goods. When everybody in the country is given jobs suddenly, or government comes up with a policy that every youth has to be given something called as a government job, we land up with a situation where the production is not in tandem with the money supply in the economy. So there can be a situation where too much of money is chasing too few goods, leading to something called as demand pull inflation. Monetary policy or RBI's role becomes very much critical, especially with respect to handling this inflation called as demand pull inflation. What is the link between money supply and inflation? In fact, we have to link the sixth point and the seventh point here, that is demand pull inflation. Too much of money supply in the economy is chasing too few goods. It is leading to an aspect called as demand pull inflation. Here, the role of RBI's monetary policy becomes critical. RBI comes up with several tools to restrict money supply in the economy so that it can handle the demand pull inflation. There are several tools called as quantitative tools which RBI uses. That is, the amount of quantity of money that moves into the economy is regulated. What are bonds? Bonds are nothing but debt instruments. The logic of putting bonds in this particular word list is the subsequent words we cannot understand without knowing what is a bond. Bond is something like a promissory note. It has the details of the name of the entity, the amount of interest it is going to pay you every quarter or half yearly, and the maturity date of the bond, or the bond is valid to how many years. Some bonds are valid for 1 year, some bonds are valid for 2 years, and so. Why is a bond called as a debt instrument? Because these are issued by companies or government or entities to raise money from the market, and therefore bonds are called as debt instruments. Let's take a simple example where I can tell you, suppose let's take an example where I am the company and I've decided to issue bonds because I've decided to raise money from the market. So I've issued these papers in the market. There are investors who have purchased these bonds giving me money. So it is indirectly, as a company, I have borrowed money from these investors and have given them a guarantee called as bond, and I'm calling it as a debt instrument because I have borrowed money using this instrument called as bond. What is the benefit for those investors who have purchased this bond? They will be receiving something called as interest, and it is a mechanism where I've issued bonds, or as a company I'm calling bond as a debt instrument. What is repo rate? Repo rate is one of the quantitative tools used by RBI to manage something called as interest rates. It is the interest rate at which RBI lends money to commercial banks and other financial institutions. How does this mechanism operate? Here it is a simple case where money is going to move from RBI to banks and other entities. Banks have to put in some security, or banks have to pledge something called as government bonds to borrow money from RBI with a repurchase agreement that after a particular period of time and a maximum period of 91 days, that banks are going to repurchase these bonds back from RBI. A simple example would be, if 100 rupees is borrowed by banks from RBI for a period of 11 days, and after 11 days, that is 100 rupees worth bonds have been pledged by bank with RBI. After 11 days, banks are going to repurchase these bonds at 106 rupees. Then the interest rate or repo rate is calculated at 6%. The basic logic here is, it is the interest rate at which RBI lends money to commercial banks and financial entities, and banks are going to repurchase these securities back after the loan period. In the next video, we'll discuss few more terms like CRR, SLR. Suggestions are always taken. Please do leave your comments. Thank you.